Thank you, Christophe, and thank you to the colleagues of the School of Law for hosting this event. I'm glad to be here to share one project that it started actually thanks to an AI TDG grant from CTU. Let me just get my slides up. Technology not always on our side. I will also share with you how AI actually is seen as something we need to have a lot of control on. So the outline for today's presentation is a brief introduction. I will share the aim of the overall project that I used to actually start using AI in 3 specific courses, but since then I've been integrating AI in all my courses across 2 departments and also at different levels, so bachelor students but also master students. I will walk you through the methodology I applied, and currently I'm also working with a colleague that actually teaches science, and we are looking into visual literacy and AI following the same steps of this project. Then I will be sharing with you some findings and conclusion. First of all, this whole idea came up when actually we started paying attention to what type of skills students will need to find a job after graduation in the time of AI. Everything started in November 2022 when actually AI was made available to a wider population. And if you pay attention to current studies that actually have been released in 2024 and even more recently in 2025, we have seen an increase in the adoption of AI across companies, even though I must say with some of the interviews that I will be sharing with you today, there is still a phase of experimentation of the use of those tools. And even though they are requiring graduates to know about AI, you will be, I think, surprised of how transferable skills is actually what stays with us and won't change no matter what type of tool we need to integrate into teaching. The aim of the project overall aimed to gain insights into the current and potential use of AI in communication and marketing industries, particularly because I teach subjects related to the use of language in business context. So I adopted a needs analysis approach, which actually refers to the technique of collecting and assessing information relevant to course designing, meaning going beyond the classroom, talk to professionals, engage with the final employers of our students and understand what are their needs and how do we actually integrate this into course design. I did interviews with marketing professionals, I identified this relevant information, and then I integrated into the design of some teaching materials, mainly 2 classes, I would say, within a course that is actually 13 weeks. But then that material was useful and transferable to other classes. Mainly, I focused at the stage of the project on the first course, Communicating Fashion Culture, and I identified a very specific genre to work on, so press release, to have control of the tasks that I would be asking students to perform. And then the same methodology has been applied to communication strategies for business projects, even though I chose another genre, so the executive summary for a report that students have to compile, and fundamentals of public relations, going back to actually press release. What I did sequentially was to have a selection of interviewees, mainly through the network that we have available at CTU, thanks to the very strong connection we have with the industry. All of them were senior managers in communication and marketing agencies. It was a mix of corporation and small and medium enterprises for a total of 6 interviews at the end recorded, about 30 minutes each. I adopted a coding scheme to annotate the different themes and actually working with Professor Hafner. Hopefully you will see a paper published out of it within the year. And then after analyzing the data, adopting an approach which is the test, teach and test paradigm, I actually developed activities in classroom. And this approach allows you to actually work with activities and then co-design with the students once you get their feedback. Afterwards, I also collected students' feedback, and I will show you what they think about integrating AI into classroom, because I think it was very useful to also understand when they go outside and interview for jobs, what can they actually bring from our classroom experience. These were the questions that I developed for the professionals. For the sake of time today, I'm only going to focus on 3 of them. So, do you consider AI knowledge a must for candidates applying to work for your company? The 11th one, what type of knowledge is considered a must? And then, what are the unique skills for junior position candidates that AI cannot actually replace?
Excellent.
The key themes that actually emerged were this importance of a mindset and innovation, this continuous learning and adaptability that is needed, and the increasing value of human skills. So when I was actually expecting them to focus on hard skills and what actually we had to teach the students to be competitive, they were actually bringing me back to what we think is the core of learning, that goes beyond the type of tools that we actually need to utilize in a class. So some of the quotes that I can share with you in regards to the answer to those questions are, I think it's not a must today, but certainly is going to be very important. At least, how to say, being able to use at least maybe 1 or 2 of these tools. But then again, your EQ, your empathy, your people skill, being able to work with teams. So I think they're really key, really, to kind of have critical thinking, right, or being able to think for yourself. That means that beyond the use of AI, they are still looking at those human skills, soft skills that we teach our students. This content is already available through a piece that is more aimed at popularizing science, that has been published by the College of Business magazine. You can scan the QR code or send me an email and I will send the piece to you. But basically, there is a summary of the findings of these very 3 questions that I've just shared with you as being key drivers for this project. But then after analyzing the interviews, we had some in-class discussion about particularly the potential and the limitation of AI, so targeting to develop this critical thinking towards the tool. In-class comparison between AI-generated text and human revised versions. In-class reflection on ethical and responsible issues related to the use of AI. And then also a meeting with professionals to actually check whether this professional was seeing those skills being developed in only 1 semester. Particularly, I focused on this course on task 1, which was this analysis of comparing text, the one generated by AI and the ones that actually were previously available on the internet. So basically what I did was taking a press release and then design prompts to design the same press release, but with AI. Then we compared the 2 texts in terms of content, lexical choices, but also structure. And I asked students to identify the differences, but also to, at the very end, compare them with the final product that companies had produced towards other topics. The second task for them, and this was a bit tricky to actually integrate because, of course, integrating AI in existing syllabi means that you cannot actually change the assessment tasks. So what I did was basically change 1 part of the group assessment for which they would be allowed to use AI. In this case, students have to produce a campaign, like a communication campaign for a brand. And only 1 element of the final presentation and report is the press release. So actually, again, you can control the use that they have of AI. And at the same time, working in group, it's actually particularly received positively because this was 2023. So not all students had the same degree of knowledge of AI or had used with it before. So I didn't want to create any type of difference in terms of digital literacy since the tool was quite new. These are some of the assignments that they actually came up with at the very end. As you can see, they've analyzed the AI-generated version. That, for instance, this is just an excerpt from one of the assignment. They define it as blunt, straightforward, but actually distant, so not being able to deploy some of the strategy that are quite specific to promotional discourse, like the pathos and the ethos that actually turn the text into assertive, promoting strong belief and being loving and engaging towards the consumers in this case. And when we actually completed the whole exercise, that was not only showing the final product, but actually they had to submit a process. I wanted to know how did they move from the text produced through the prompts to the final version submitted for the assignment. And some of the excerpts from their feedback was quite interesting because the professional invited to class was actually saying that he noticed that students were engaging with him during the Q&A, cultivating a mindset that discerns between ethical and responsible AI use and potential harms to both business and society. At the same time, I received this nice message from one of our alumni that went for an interview, actually to get a PDGE, if I remember correctly. And the student, one of the alumni was actually asked, how would you use AI in the classroom? So then the student was able to remember and bring the portfolio of activities that we had actually created in class. So it's not only raising awareness, but also providing them with a portfolio of text activities that they could share during interviews. Other students from different courses, as you can see, they only had to write 200 and they focused on the limitations of AI. So they recognized that their first approach to them of being this fantastic tool that could change their life, actually they needed to go and revise because there are cultural biases, as you can see in the second one, or there are actually weaknesses that they recognize with AI. So in terms of conclusion, I would argue that besides the tool that we need to interact with, the focus of course design should be still on transferable skills, growth mindset, digital literacies, interdisciplinary learning, and experiential learning. So if we think of AI, it does require a collaboration of the university, the professionals, but also the students trying to understand where do they stand in terms of literacy and what type of use they are actually adopting of these tools. These are some selected references, and thank you very much for your attention.